everybody. It's Andrea, and we're back with another fabulous episode. I have another guest from Canada. You are going to meet Cindy Nickerson today. She's the Director of Communications for Christ the Redeemer Catholic Schools in Alberta, Canada. Now, she's got 17 schools, over 10,000 students, and she is a one-person shop. And I know there are a lot of one person or not even one person shops listening. We're really going to dive into how she got into her role back in 2013, and then talk through her communication leads program. She has 17 schools. She's got communication leads at each school that help manage the social media for their school. This division is rather large. There's like 3 hours difference in travel between one school and the other one on the other side. So that's a lot. Lot of ground to cover. So one thing to know about these communication leads that I didn't really realize in the discussion is they do get a small stipend. Okay. So these folks at the school does value what social media can do, and I hope your school values what social media can do. That it is a small stipend, not a lot, but they do get recognized. And she's going to talk through, how those people are selected, how she trains them, what they're responsible for, all of that. She's really going to share what the biggest thing is, which is buy-in, right? We got to get buy-in from our leadership group. And then we're going to talk through an award-winning campaign that they did. So you're going to want to check out the show notes so you can see that as well. And then she's really got some great advice to wrap up. You're not going to want to miss the end in regards to the types of stories that really do the best. And I think it's brilliant, especially as we venture into the year 2025 and we're so worried about trends and all of these things. What kind of stories really resonate the best. And so stick around for this entire episode. You are going to enjoy it. And Cindy is part of our membership group. And if you would like to be in our Instagram challenge, it's starting next week. So the first 2 weeks of February, 2025 here, we've got an Instagram challenge. And it's a 2-week challenge, 20 different things to take action on, try to really embolden and brighten and increase your followers and engagement on Instagram, all in a 2-week span. The great thing is you get access to it even if you join after February. You're still going to be able to go back and use it. But Instagram is such a great channel for your school, but there's a lot of schools that just are not using it in the right way. So we are really going to train and challenge you to take the right steps for Instagram to work for your school. So if you want to be part of that and just part of the membership group, which is a secret sauce to providing you the resources that you need to be that social media champion in your district, check it out over at socialschool4edu.com. Now let's get to this week's K-12 PR tip. All right, today's K-12 PR tip is how to add both photos and videos to one Facebook post. So on your personal Facebook page, you can share photos and videos. On your Facebook business page, which your school is, you can't. But there is a workaround. If you wanted to share, let's just say, for example, 5 pictures and 2 videos from a specific event in one post, what you could do is you could publish the 5 pictures and hit publish to your page. Then on your computer, go back in, logged in as your school page up in the upper right-hand corner, and edit the post right on your page, on your Facebook page. When you go to it, you're going to hit the 3 dots and you're going to hit edit post. Okay. When you do that, if you hover over where the pictures are, there's an edit all and an add photos or videos. You're going to click on add photos or videos, and you're going to select the 2 videos that you'd like to add. Now, the cool thing is, once you add those, you can edit all and you can change the order of the pictures and the videos in your post. Instead of always having to have the video at the end, maybe you want the video to be shown second. You can drag it to that second position. You can click done, and you are going to see a preview of that post with the video included. You simply hit save and voila, it is done. So that is how you can add both photos and videos to a post. Unfortunately, you can't schedule it out. It has to be once it's published. And you do have to post the pictures first or one video. And if you posted one video, then you could go back and again edit and add in other videos or pictures. So there is your tip for today. Now let's get into a lot of great advice from our guest, Cindy Nickerson. Welcome to the podcast, Cindy Nickerson. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well, thank you.
Yeah, it's so great to see you again virtually. We got to like give each other a hug a few months ago at Case, which was awesome. Well, first, I'd like to introduce you to our listeners. If you can share your background and then your role as Director of Communications for the Christ the Redeemer Catholic Schools there in Alberta.
Sure. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I'll share with you a little bit about my background and how I came to Christ the Redeemer Catholic Schools in Alberta. My background is actually in journalism. So I think a number of people in the communications role have started in the newspaper. And so it's kind of common. But I worked for the Western Wheel. So that's the local paper here in Okotoks, Alberta. I worked there for 13 years. Most of that time I was the editor. And then I began to start a family, and being in journalism and having a family is a little bit difficult. So I took a step back. I later worked for a graphic design and print company in Okotoks and was hired at Christ the Redeemer Catholic Schools in 2012.
Okay.
This was actually before there was ever a communications person in the school division. And so I don't know if you know, but in 2020 or 2013, we had a major flood in High River. And as you can imagine, the need for a communication person in a school division where several of our schools were affected was really important. And at the time, many metro boards had communications people, but in smaller school divisions, there just wasn't that role. And so someone at the time started a Facebook page actually during the flood to get that message out to our parents really quickly about what was happening and occurring in the community. But then after that initial purpose, when we started the Facebook account, it sat dormant for a long time. And then later, our superintendent recognized there was a need to have a communications person dedicated into the role. And then I sort of stepped into that role because of my background in journalism, and I became the first communications person in the division, and I'm still here 13 years later. I work directly with the superintendent. I'm on the senior administration team. So really we went from that dormant Facebook page to in 2013 to really a robust multi-platform, platinum, sure,
Sure.
system that's managed by a team of 23 communication leads across 17 schools. And I can go into a little bit more detail about my role. It's like many other communications people, I wear many hats. So that's just sort of how I got started here.
Okay. So first question, when you started in 2012, what was your first role?
I actually came in as an administrative assistant to the director of learning. And so I was in that role doing various tasks for a year and a half before they recognized that there was both a need for a communications person, but also that I had the skill set to step into that role.
Yeah. Well, I think that's important for listeners to hear because there's a lot of people that have kind of they were a volunteer and then they, worked in a certain position and then they ended up moving into that role. Tell me a little bit about the size of Christ the Redeemer Catholic Schools. You said 17 schools, is that right?
Right. We have 17 schools, really geographically spread out. Our student enrollment is about 10,100. And we have a large online school.
Okay. So that the online school is included the 10,100 students?
Yes.
Okay. And then tell me a little bit about how the Catholic schools are set up in Canada, because this is something I totally learned at Case. I did not know how it's kind of like a public school, but there's a Catholic school option. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, in Canada, the right to the Catholic school system is actually a constitutional right in some provinces, including Alberta. And I think the major difference between Catholic schools in Canada opposed to the States is that we're publicly funded. So just like our public school counterparts, parents have a choice and options to put their children into either a public school system or a separate school system, which is Catholic, or even the charter schools. So there's a lot of choice
Okay.
in Canada
So
and Alberta.
yeah, so mainly in the States, if they attend like a Catholic school, there'd be some type of tuition, and there's no tuition there.
Correct. Yeah, correct. We're publicly funded, so we're funded by the government. So
Okay.
there's no tuition fees to attend Catholic school in Alberta.
Okay. Yeah, so now if we could jump into social media, how you run social media for your division and then also at your schools, if you can just kind of break down like what platforms you're on and all of that.
Sure. So I manage the division social media, and so we have both Facebook and Instagram accounts.
Okay.
Um, and then all of our schools have social media. They all have Facebook and Instagram as well. And so for me, my role at the division office is basically I post all the divisional news. So whether it's special days of recognition, and then I encourage our schools to share those posts to their pages as well. Because we're faith-based, we often highlight the value of Catholic education.
Hmm.
And then we have divisional priorities. So our divisional priorities are our Catholic faith, but also academic excellence and our healthy schools, so safe and caring schools. And so a lot of our social media posts will fit into one of those three categories. And then I try to regularly share things that are happening at the school level onto our division page as well. And then each of our schools manage their own social media accounts,
Okay.
but they're
So
set up divisionally. Yeah.
so Facebook and Instagram, which is I think the primary two channels that most schools use. So I love that you're using those channels. Have you explored any other ones or you're
Not really. We tend to have the philosophy that, two is a lot and just do what you can on those two channels. And we have done a little, some of our schools are really keen and they have jumped into TikTok a little bit, which
okay?
is fantastic. They're typically using it to share, videos and things like that. And then they share it to the other social media platforms. So we are branching out a little bit into TikTok, not divisionally, but at the school level.
Okay. I like it. Yeah, you're so right. Like two is a lot. So why would you add three or four or five?
Right.
And then you've got the three kind of buckets of storytelling that you're really trying to do with the faith-based, the academics, and then that healthy, safe, and caring environment. And so that
Correct.
helps drive that. So you are a one-person shop. But you've had some success training your schools on running their own pages. So I got a lot of questions about that because your schools are doing a really good job, Cindy, and it's not always easy. So tell me a little bit about that program and how that works, how the people are selected, all of that.
Sure. So I'll back up. So like most people, like you mentioned in this role, I'm a one-person shop. And with that comes many challenges. One of the struggles I had 3 years ago when I was a one-person shop was having enough time and resources to really celebrate all the great things that were happening at our schools. And as I mentioned, we are geographically spread out. So we have schools in 7 different communities in Alberta, with our furthest one being 3 hours away. So I
Gosh.
was, yeah. So it's kind of tricky to get out to all of those schools and take all the pictures and share their stories. And at the time, each school, as I mentioned, had their own Facebook page that I set up initially. And it was the principals who were taking the time to send me photos to post on their social media. And obviously, we know principals are so very busy, and just remembering to send me photos of events was a real challenge. And I really didn't feel like I was doing an adequate job across all of our schools to tell our stories and get those stories out to our families. So I needed to find a way to build my capacity. So I pitched the idea to my superintendent at the time to have a communications person in each one of our schools. And those communications people at the school level, I would lead them and support them through professional development and training to run their social media accounts effectively. And so one thing I want to add to it that in addition to running their social media accounts, which we know is such a big job, they're also responsible to, with my support, to reach out to the local media and tell their story that way and to get local coverage because they know their communities best. And so they're really looking for unique ways out, even outside of social media, to tell their story. It's really a telling our story is a division focus that we have. And the reason we have that, I'll just jump in and tell you this story. The reason we have a division focus to tell our stories across all of our schools on social media and in other ways is because in Alberta, if you've followed the news, unfortunately, there's a negative narrative out there. Um, like headlines such as, chronic underfunding, teacher cuts, huge class sizes. We have a bus driver shortage and teacher shortages. So as you can hear, that negative narrative is kind of loud. And so one of the things I learned from actually being a part of your membership group is that we need to unapologetically shine a light on the amazing things that are happening in our schools in order to counter that negative narrative. And so that really was the driving force behind having a dedicated person in each one of our schools to tell their own unique stories and get those out in an effective way. So I went from being that one person shop to now really having a creative team approach to telling our stories um, and getting the story of the school division told.
So how are those people selected? And I'm assuming it's not their full-time job, so is it a certain type of staff member, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's really volunteer.
Okay.
So when we first initially, we've done this for 3 years now, but when we first came up with the idea, one of the major things we needed to do was to get principals to buy in. And having principals buy in, then they would be excited about pitching this idea of having a social media manager in their schools to their staff. And it's really a volunteer approach. So anyone in the school can volunteer to become a social media manager. Mostly it's teachers.
Okay.
I do have some support staff members who are communication leads in our schools. So it's really anyone who's really keen on social media and wants to be a part of it. So, and they do have the backing and the support of their whole school staff because principals are really on board with this initiative. So, yeah.
Okay. So they're responsible for their content for their Facebook and Instagram accounts, and they're posting on there. Are they getting all the content themselves, or do they have a method of getting content from other staff members throughout their school building?
Yeah, so because this is the third year, I think the first year probably they were generating all of the content themselves. And I'll mention too that I host those two full professional development training days where we focus on social media best practices and we look to other schools for inspiration. And they really, most importantly, they collaborate with one another and we learn together. And so in doing that, one of the things that sort of came up was how do we get our staff on board to help us? Because again, it's about building capacity, right? Just like I did, they also need to build that capacity within their school. And so with the principal's support, they host staff meetings, they celebrate what they're doing on social media. They really get that, school vibe going and the school pride and it really inspires the staff to contribute content to those communication leads. So they're building capacity within their own school that way.
Okay. And so you have two full professional development days each year where you bring them to a central location then, and you guys are kind of all in one room, or
Yeah, so we all get together twice a year in the fall and in the spring. They come to our central office in Okotoks. from all of the different communities. And we have a full day full of learning best practices and looking for inspiration. And like I mentioned, really working and collaborating on problem solving together. And that's been really important to the communication leads, and also having a little bit of time when they get here to create content and come up with different ideas, and giving them that gift of time has really been inspirational to them.
Yeah. And what resources, you mentioned you're in our membership group. Have you been able to pull some resources out of there to help you in how you're training those, communication leads at each school?
Absolutely. Being a part of your membership group has given me valuable information and resources to provide back to the communication leads. They often will give me new ideas and inspiration, but I think being a part of the membership group and having just being a part of those conversations and troubleshooting and problem solving together has given me some tools for sure to give back to those communication leads so they have them to be successful.
Yeah. And how effective has the social media storytelling been? Do you have some data or some things that you've looked at over these past 3 years and how you've been able to improve your social media connection, engagement, reach, all of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Anecdotally, I can tell you that our capacity, our reach has been exponential across all of our schools since in the last 3 years. People are really getting involved in social media, following their schools. As a division, most families follow the school, not the entire division. And I've seen one school go from 0 followers on Instagram to 900 in a very short period of time. So yes, it having school level social media managers has really made a difference in reaching our families. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, you guys are telling great stories, and it's that same transparency and really giving people a front row seat to what's happening. And as you said, there are choices that families are making when it comes to education, in Canada as in US. And so we need to make sure that we're telling our story, and you guys are doing that so well. It's just daunting, I think, when some of the folks listening are just like, oh my gosh, like I know I need to do this, but I'm a little bit afraid. I mean, what advice would you have if somebody was like, okay, I want to get this started at my school, but I'm not really sure, where to start? What advice would you say?
I guess I think people see the value in social media, and they see that it's far reaching. Um, and we can talk about like what kinds of stories to tell a little bit later, but I think that having buy-in from your senior level administration is really important. And show them examples of how you can reach families and how they come to your school. Because of social media, especially young families. So I can give you one example. We had a family in Southern Calgary area who was looking for a school for her young son to go to, and came across one of our schools in Okotoks and through social media, and went to the teacher and said, I love your school. I love your following. I love your staff engagement and how fun your school looks. And I really want my child to come here. And also said, and how do I volunteer to be on your social media and help with the content? Loved it so much that actually enrolled their child into one of our schools because of social media. So I think that's a really great story of how, as I mentioned, far reaching it can be. And so telling those stories will help. And just again, building capacity will help you in your role. And it doesn't need to be daunting. It can be pretty simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you are a bigger school division or in the States a school district, and there are those times when you feel that closer tied to the school versus the school division. I just always caution if you're a listener and you've got, fewer than 5,000 students, don't feel like you have to have separate school pages for your elementary and middle school and high school or however you have it divvied up. But in some cases and in some schools that are really big or really far reaching, it just makes sense. But one person still can't do it all. And so you've really built some capacity there. Um, I'm going to just transition a little bit because you are one of our lucky Golden Gribble winners. And you won it for a Did You Know campaign. So I'd like you to just share a little bit about that campaign for the listeners, and we'll share a couple links to some of the posts that you shared throughout that campaign.
Sure. Well, first of all, I was so excited and honored to be to receive that award. And then I got my little package with my little award. It's up on my shelf. I don't know if you can see it. But I was super proud and happy and honored to receive that Golden Gribble Award. It was for awesome awareness campaign. And the campaign was called or is called Did You Know? Basically, the campaign is designed to provide families with information about our school division that they might not know. So, for example, we have many families who come to our schools that are from other countries or provinces or even other school divisions who might not know that we're publicly funded, or who might not know that you don't have to be Catholic to attend our schools, that we welcome everyone. And so, really, what the campaign was created to do was to equip our parents with information necessary to fill out an assurance survey. So the survey is put out by the province of Alberta. It's a requirement. And then all parents of grades 4, 11, and 7 fill out the survey. And really our school division values those results. And we wanted a unique way to share them back with families, the results of those surveys. So what we did was we created a series of around 35 facts about our school division, and we share those facts as did you know sort of stories over the course of 2 months. Really, it's leading up to them getting that survey and giving them the language that they need, and the stories and the examples that they need to fill out that survey properly. It's our second year this year doing the Did You Know campaign. It's running currently on our social media pages, so go check it out if you get a chance. The engagement has been really, really fantastic. And what's super exciting about that campaign this year is that all of our schools are replicating it at the school level. So they've taken the templates that I've created and they're using their own facts, they're using their own photos, and they're really just telling their own story in that unique way. With the Did You Know campaign. So it's been really successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were able to kind of get those facts, like you said, 35 facts, and then you're sharing them out over 2 months. So people get used to seeing that, and we'll share a couple of those links. That'll be great. I just think it's powerful for all of our schools because I think there's always things that people don't know about your school, things that set you apart, and sometimes just a little simple graphic, but then you also have a caption with a story to go along with it. And you guys did a great job. And it's great to know that you're still doing it. It's not like a once and done. You're continuing to use that year after year. Your did you knows may change a little bit, right? Get updated.
Yeah, they do. They get updated just with new information or new programming or even just new results. So we just got our results for this year, and we have new data to share. So we've updated it with that and added a few new ones. And you're right, the schools can take that unique opportunity to share things that families might not know about their school and their programming. So it's been really effective, and we'll continue, like I said, into the new year with those and share them on both platforms, Facebook and Instagram. So.
Yeah. Well, and we mentioned this Golden Gribble Award. You guys, you don't have to pay anything to enter, but you can enter, and it'll be opening soon. So it opens coming up here maybe in March, and we give away the awards on the National Communicator Day in May during a live little session with me. So make sure that you're on our newsletter, and you can check that out in the show notes. And we'll definitely link the social media pages for the division on the show notes as well, so you can take a look at some of the stories that Cindy's sharing. Just to wrap up, Cindy, you shared already just a great story that ended up meaning a new student at your school, which is great. But what are some of the best stories that you've been able to share from your schools or your division on social media? Do you have a couple favorites that have really done well?
I can tell you that I think the best stories to share on social media are those really simple stories, like the heart stories, the little moments that make a difference in the lives of students every day. Um, I think that parents really want that window into what's happening in the school, and social media is a really powerful way to give them that look. I can think of one example, and there's millions out there across all of our schools. There's so many great things happening. This one was pretty simple. It was of a young student who was super nervous on the first day of school, to come into the school and didn't want to leave their mom. They were just clinging to their leg. No, I don't want to go. And a front office staff member, just kindly took the child's hand, and walked the student down the hallway to her classroom. Super simple, right? Like it's such a simple post, but it was a picture of the two of them walking hand in hand down the hallway and kind of looking at each other. And it was just such a nice way to share an example of our safe and caring nature of our schools. And so I guess for me, those little moments that we can capture are some of the best stories that we can tell. And another example I can think of is because we have a unique opportunity to tell our story of our faith. We can do this in lots of ways. It's not just a religion class. Like faith is permeated across all of our classrooms and our hallways. And there was a student at one of our schools who was moving away. And so they gathered at the end of the day in a circle around this student and did a blessing. And so you hold your hand out and you say a blessing to the student. And it was just a really moving way to send off for this student to leave the school division. So that's just one other very simple social media post. It's a picture of them with their hands up blessing the student as they exited the school. So I think those really simple ones are the best stories to tell.
Yeah, I mean, we went from a whole coordinated campaign of Did You Know, which won you an award, which is great, but it is really those little moments that can define your school and that say it's almost like, when when you know you're being sold to, you don't like it, right? You don't want to be sold to. Well, that's what I feel those little stories do because it's like it says so much about your students, about your staff, about your faith, about, what matters to your school without having to say much at all. Right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love that. Great advice, Cindy. So what is your best social media tip?
Oh gosh. I suppose again, don't overthink it.
Mhm.
I remember you had a sticker at your booth at the conference in Calgary that said posted is better than perfect. And
Yes.
I love that. I love that sticker. I grabbed a bunch. But I think often with social media, we always feel like we're not doing enough. We want to do more. Like innately, we want to do more because we want to be perfect and we want to celebrate all the things and keep up with the latest trending reel. But it really, at the end of the day, getting overwhelmed, our wellness suffers from that. So one thing I tell my communication leads often is what you're doing is enough.
Hmm.
You don't need it to be perfect. We just need to be posting and we need to be sharing, those little moments. It doesn't have to be hard, and there's no shortage of wonderful things going on. So I really like the idea of posted is better than perfect. You don't always have to plan everything in advance like a campaign. So yeah, the ones that we do on the fly are really the ones that really resonate with our families. So
Yeah.
um, yeah.
So I got a question for you for the school pages. How often are those pages posting on their Facebook and Instagram page? Do you kind of have a target for them to try to hit in a week or a month or?
Not really. I don't really put parameters around it because there's so many different things going on at different schools all of the
Mhm.
time. They are posting regularly, I can say that. So I would say 2 and 3 times a week, if not more. And so like they're doing a really, really great job at it. But yeah, there's no like set schedule in place.
Okay. And
Yeah,
part of that it could be too, it's a volunteer position, so they're not getting
exactly.
paid extra for that, but it can work. And so I think this is really proof that it can. And do you call them communication leads? Is that what you call them?
Yes, we have team leads in other subject areas in our school, so it just falls along with that naming convention. So yeah, they're called communication leads.
Okay, perfect. Well, this has been great. I think you're doing such a great job there. If people want to reach out, maybe they have an additional question, Cindy, what's the best way to stay connected to you?
Yeah, sure. So you can connect with me at cnickerson@redeemer.ab.ca. That's my email, or certainly send me a message through social media at CTR Catholic.
Okay, we'll have both of those in the show notes. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today, and I just wish you the best. Keep up the great work, and it can be done. Like you gotta, I think one of my favorite things out of this is just that building capacity because most people are that single shop, or maybe they got two people and they're lucky, but they still have 20,000 students, and that's challenging. And so I learned a lot today. So thank you so much, Cindy.
Thank you. If I can just say a thank you to you as well. I think you're right. The model of building capacity creates ownership and pride at the school level that one person could never do. I want to say thank you, Andrea, for this opportunity. It was a pleasure to meet you at the Keys Conference. I want to say how grateful I am to for your membership. As I mentioned before, it's so valuable to have an extended social media team that you can lean in on when you're struggling, who provides just so much inspiration and help. You really created a community here, and I am very grateful to be a part of it. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And that community is my lifeline, right? Like social media is overwhelming, but together we can do so much. And if you want to learn more about the membership group, you can check out my website. Um, and thank you so much. We will be back here next week with another fantabulous guest, if that's a word. I don't think it is, but Cindy, thanks so much for joining us today. Everybody keep telling those stories. Bye-bye.
Thank you.